Could a single move by Donald Trump, one involving $200 billion, actually kick off the next massive Bitcoin bull market? Well, that's the huge claim from a recent Simply Bitcoin video. So, is there anything to this theory? Let's dive in and really unpack their argument.
It all kicks off with this one simple phrase: the printer is coming. You know, in the world of finance, that's basically code for one thing: a giant new wave of money creation. And that one idea, it's the foundation for everything else they talk about.
So at the very heart of their argument is this single domino, a $200 billion move that they believe will set off a chain reaction that just can't be stopped. So let's follow the breadcrumbs, right? Let's see exactly how they connect this one action to a massive Bitcoin explosion.
So what's the catalyst? What's the thing that starts it all? Well, the video points to a very specific directive, one they say came from Donald Trump, that they believe fires the starting gun on what they're calling the big print.
And the number at the center of it all is just staggering: $200 billion. I mean, to put that in perspective, we're talking about so much cash, it could fundamentally change the liquidity of the entire financial system. The whole argument really hangs on this number.
So here's the specific claim, that Trump told government-sponsored groups, we're talking Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to go out and buy up all these bonds. And why? Well, according to the video, the whole point was to drive interest rates down, to make that American dream of owning a home just a little bit easier.
Okay, to really get this, we've got to talk about what these things actually are. Mortgage-backed securities, or MBS, are just bundles of home loans all packaged up and sold as investments. And when a government-backed group buys them on this kind of scale, the argument is that's basically the same thing as firing up the money printer and injecting cash right into the economy.
But look, a move like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. To really understand the kind of impact it could have, we have to zoom out and look at the bigger economic picture. And really, it's all about this tug of war between two big ideas: QT and QE.
On one side, you've got quantitative tightening, or QT. Just think of it as the central bank sucking money out of the system, making money tight. And on the other side, you've got quantitative easing, or QE. That's where they pump money in, making it loose. And the entire point the video is making is that we're right in the middle of a huge shift, a pivot away from tightening and headfirst into easing.
And their message is super clear here. Forget the fancy names. They're basically saying that whether the Fed calls it reserve management or whatever else, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, well, it's printing money.
And they have their own terms for this. They see what the Fed is doing right now is a gradual print, kind of a warm-up. But they're saying, hey, that's just the opening act. The main event is what they call the big print. And they believe that $200 billion move is what kicks it all off.
Okay, so we've got the catalyst, that supposed $200 billion injection, and we've got the economic backdrop of a big shift to QE. But how in the world did these dots connect to Bitcoin? This is where we get to the heart of their prediction.
And this quote from the video, wow, it really tells you everything you need to know about how big they think this is going to be. They're not talking about some slow and steady climb. No, they are predicting a fast, almost violent move to the upside once the market catches on to this big print.
So how's this all supposed to work? Well, it starts with that big money injection, which pushes interest rates down. Suddenly, your savings account isn't looking so hot. That pushes investors to look for better returns somewhere else, and they start moving into what are called risk-on assets. And in their view, where does a lot of that money go? Straight into Bitcoin.
And yeah, they're not afraid to put some numbers on it. The speaker in the video throws out a target range for Bitcoin, saying it could land somewhere between $180,000 and $300,000. I mean, that is a huge prediction, and it's all based on this chain of events they've laid out.
The argument actually goes even deeper than just the big picture macroeconomics. The analysis also zooms in on the different types of investors in the market right now, and they highlight this huge disconnect they're seeing.
So the way they see it, the market is totally split. On one side, you have the retail crowd, regular individual investors, and they're feeling pretty down. But on the other side, you've got the big institutions, and they're saying that's like a freight train that has already left the station and is picking up speed.
So what's their proof? Well, they point to these massive inflows into Bitcoin ETFs. The fact that Wall Street giants like BlackRock and Morgan Stanley are getting in the game, and get this, they say that not a single major institution they track even hit the pause button during the last market dip. For them, this isn't just dipping a toe in the water, it's a sign of a really deep commitment.
And they argue this gap between retail and the big guys, it's not going to last. They point to new things like the Rumble Wallet, which is a partnership with Tether, and say this is how millions of brand new retail users are going to flood into the space, creating what could be another massive wave of demand.
All right, and for the grand finale, the video zooms way out to make what is probably its most ambitious prediction of all, and it's about Bitcoin's long-term future in the global financial system.
And this is the end game of their whole argument. They actually predict that the US government will eventually have no choice but to start buying and holding Bitcoin as a strategic national asset. And why would they do that? It's not just about making money. They argue it's a strategic move to protect the US dollar's spot at the top of the global food chain.
And the way they explain it is by comparing it to stuff the US already does. Right? The US has a massive petroleum reserve to influence oil prices. It has a massive gold reserve to back up the dollar. So their thinking is, a Bitcoin reserve would do the same exact thing for the digital world, secure a seat at the table and influence over the network. And to bring it all back down to earth, they tell this story about a woman who just saved $1, just a single dollar in Bitcoin every single day for 3 years. Her return? Over 121%. It's a pretty powerful way to show the potential of just staying consistent.
And that's where the video leaves us. It lays out this entire case for a massive economic shift, and then it ends with this really provocative question. So yeah, they're not just giving you an analysis. They're basically turning to you and asking, what's your plan for a future they think is coming a lot sooner than we might expect?